Oh, I'm shocking at taking photos. Like I get so lost and excited in the making that I'm like, done.
All right.
And my mum will go, did you take any photos of that genius while you were working? And I'll be like, nope. You want me to do stuff for content? Sorry.
You're listening to Fussy Cutters Club podcast, a show that gives you permission to cut into the good fabric so you can make quilts you love. And now your host, who believes it's not a crime to love using novelty fabrics, Ange Wilson.
Welcome, Fussy Cutters, to another great conversation. Today I'm sitting down with Joanna of Kustom Kwilts. Joanna is an epic fussy cutter. She works primarily in EPP, but she also runs a business for long arm quilting and does pattern designing as well. She is one of those very annoying people who is multi-talented, does everything really well, and is so super lovely to boot. So she's the dangerous trifecta. I hope you really enjoy listening to Joanna today as she talks about her process and what she looks for. And then I would highly recommend you to go follow her on Instagram and get a daily dose of fussy cutting awesomeness. So, without further ado, let's get chatting. Hi, Joanna. Welcome to Fussy Cutters Club. How are you today?
Hi, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Now, I found you on Instagram, the home of all great creatives, and I was immediately drawn to your, obviously, fussy cutting, your use of colour. You do primarily EPP patterns, so you are very prolific for a hand stitcher. You definitely do not put the slow in slow stitch. So can you tell our audience a little bit about what you do, where you come from, your creative journey, a bit of background?
Sure. So I actually used to be an ag teacher, like agriculture science, and an FFA advisor. I don't know if y'all have the equivalent of that where you are, but basically I taught like animal science, floral design, veterinary medicine to high school kids.
Wow.
And I didn't sew or anything. And whenever I was in high school, I really liked art. And I really wanted to do something with sculpture. My grandmother was an artist. She did a lot of watercolors and oil paintings. And she was also a sewer. She was very just massive creativity all the time. And I kind of told my parents, I think I want to do this whole art thing. And my dad, he is such a pragmatic person. He told me I would starve to death.
Oh, snap.
He's like, you need to find something realistic that you can do to support yourself. And art is not it. And he was right. The way I would have gone about it, I would have been a starving artist for sure. So I got a teaching degree or a certificate, and then I went and got my master's in education. And I got burned out really fast in public education over here. It's a grind for sure. And they just take and take and take. And I love the kids. I loved what I did, but just, I don't know. I don't want to say anything bad about what I used to do. But my husband and I didn't have any kids. And he had this lathe. He had all this mechanical stuff in our garage. And so I would get kind of mad in the evenings that I didn't have anything to like wind down with. And he did. Like he had this awesome whatever he was doing out in the garage. And I would kind of go bug him and he'd be like, you need to find something to do with yourself. Like you need a hobby, you need to do something. And my mom had given me this crummy little Singer plastic sewing machine. I mean, I love it. It was a wedding gift.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, but the quality that a lot of quilters, they would kind of probably thumb their nose at it. And I pulled that thing out and I just was like, okay, I'm going to suffer through this. I'm going to figure something out. And I started sewing just these awful little bags. They were terrible. I don't think I even finished the seams. Like the seams were raw. I didn't serge them. I didn't even know what serging was. I didn't know that you needed to like hide the seams or conceal them with binding or whatever. But I got a lot of joy out of that. And it made me not so just exhausted with life and work. And then it just turned into an obsession. And it's all that I could think about. Like I would be at school with my kids, or I'd be at a judging contest with them. And then we'd have like lots of downtime at hotels or whatever in the evenings when we were traveling. And I would just crave sewing time. And it was kind of all I thought about. And so I told my husband, I was like, I really kind of want to explore this. And I opened an Etsy shop, you know. I cringe now at some of the things that I did, but I didn't know, I didn't know what I didn't know. That's kind of the long, I don't know if I'm going anywhere with this story, but I just kind of got obsessed with it. And I really wanted to quilt. I'm really a long arm quilter. I just kind of do pattern design on the side. It's kind of a strange thing, but I ended up leaving public education after 9 years and doing this full time. So I am in my 8th year of doing this full time. Wow. I left when I was pregnant with my daughter, and she is 7 now, 7.5. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Wow. So primarily doing long arm for other people's quilts?
Yes. I specialize in edge to edge and custom quilting. And I also do a lot of freelance work for GnomeAngel. I'm under contract with them to do work. And I have a lot of just kind of regular quilt patterns, but I really love EPP. Yeah. And so I think that's where my joy really is in English paper piecing.
And it's a really familiar story for me because I did the same thing, wanted to be an artist, and my father said exactly the same thing. You're going to starve. You like a good meal. Art is not for you. So I was like, okay.
I listened to that episode, or I think it was your intro episode, and I was just like nodding my head like, wow, yeah. That's
so, and he's right. Even now, doing an art-based business, it's a struggle because people don't value it the same way they value other high-end items or handcrafted items. And it's an interesting thing, and I often talk with Sam Hunter of Hunter's Design Studio about, why is it? Why is it that women's crafts and sewing in particular isn't more valued? But we digress. So EPP, long arming, I want to go, is there a point when you fell in love with fussy cutting, or was it a slow burn kind of thing, or you found fussy cutting just complemented the style of quilting that you liked? Or
it happened when I was at work one day, and it was during my lunch break. Obviously, I wasn't shopping for fabric on the clock, but I was on fabric.com before they went out of business. And I found these hilarious fabrics, and it was Tula Pink. And I didn't know who she was. I didn't know anything about anything, but it was her saltwater line.
Yeah.
And I remember I saw the blue octopus, and I thought it was so hilarious. I don't know why I got so tickled by that one print, but I ended up ordering just gobs of that fabric line, not knowing at the time what I was ordering. And when I got it, I was just so humored by it. And my husband was like, why did you buy fabric with an octopus on it? Like, I don't understand what you're doing. And I said, I don't know. I think it's just great. It's hilarious. And, I didn't ever do anything with that. I think I still have those fabric cuts. I haven't cut them up yet. Isn't that terrible?
That's amazing, though.
I'm going to get there. I'm going to cut them up. But I just remember seeing that and thinking, oh, that's hilarious.
Saltwater was the first line I bought more than a yard, or like I bought a yard of everything. And so yes. I completely understand. That was my gateway to Tula was saltwater, I think.
Yes. And there's another print in that with the ocean, and there's like trash floating in the ocean. Yeah. And I cracked up. I thought it was so funny. I thought it was the funniest thing. But I think that was, and I still haven't cut that fabric up yet either, but I will. I'm going to do it. But I remember thinking, this fabric designer is just hilarious. Yep. I love her.
Yep. And I felt like there's an author, I assume he's worldwide, but there was an author when I was growing up called Graham Bass, and he was an illustrator / author, but he used to do really detailed illustrations in his stories. And it was, you would have to go and find like 5 rats or 5, and so there was a hide and seek element to his illustrations, which I just really loved. It was like finding a hidden Mickey. And that's the thing with Tula's fabric. There's always something hidden in it that you can find, and it's not apparent at first glance that it's there. And I think if I'm correct in analysing what you post, your bent with fussy cutting is the repeating secondary design. So taking one element and using it multiple times to create a secondary design. So that must really play into your wheelhouse, because you get to scour that fabric and look for those little nuggets that you can use over and over and over again to create something sublime and just amazing. Like, I am very fortunate. Our listeners can't see it, but I am looking at your latest quilt. All right, here, cover me. I'm going in. Divination. I can't.
Divination. Yes. Divination.
I want to go divination.
I know.
And it is 1, 2, 3, 6, 8-pointed star. So
yes, that's right.
And you're using, is it a 60-degree diamond for an 8-point?
It is not. Hold on. Oh, the math is not mathing.
Yeah.
I can't tell you because I have my templates custom made.
Yep.
And so I don't.
No, it's all right.
Gosh, I don't know.
So it is a diamond shape that you use to make the 8-pointed star.
Yes, right.
And so you've got 8 pieces of the same section of the fabric cut out and sewn together in exactly the same way to create that seamless repeat. Do you think that style of fussy cutting appeals to you because of I would say ag is a bit of a science-based.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
And so it's that, what do you call your technical mind, or your curiosity at how things come together and work, or?
Yeah, I think so. I spend a lot of time finding the fussy cut and kind of analyzing what's going to look the best and be the most interesting, I think.
Do you use a mirror, or can you see it?
Occasionally I do.
Yeah.
If I'm posting something on Instagram, like a reel or something, I will pull a mirror out just because I feel like other people see it easier whenever it's right there in front of them. But I like to do a lot of cuts that aren't symmetrical, and the mirrors don't help with that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I do, but I don't really rely on that.
I find, and I've talked to a few fussy cutters now, and for a lot of us, we can actually see it in our minds. It's not, it's a really interesting, like the nerd in me kind of goes, it'd be great to do a study where we all got together and
for sure.
They talk about what can you see? What you see in your head, does this look like it when you're done, or did it? And I also wonder sometimes whether it's a learned trait. So the more you do it, the better you get at it, obviously, like golf.
Right.
But what is it about our brains that sees it? Like, I can't see a magic eye. You know, the 90s where they had those magic eye posters?
I can't see those either. No. I would work and work. I could never, still to this day, I can't see them.
And there's a scene, and I think it's in Mallrats, where they're all standing in front of the store looking at the magic eye. That was me. I cannot see that stuff. But if you put fabric in front of me, I could pretty much tell you where the repeat's going to be, which bits you can pull out of it, all of that sort of stuff. So do you have any people that you take inspiration from, or are you one of those people who doesn't follow a lot of it so that you can keep it, you're not cross-pollinating? Or
I really try hard to not follow other people who are doing English paper piecing. I do occasionally see things just because you can't, social media is what it is, and someone will reshare something, or I just try to not study the things that other people are doing. I will say that whenever I first got into EPP, and this is terrible, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's Millefiori. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I am a diehard fan. I think that stuff is amazing. And I think that's probably really what pushed me into making my own patterns, because I was just blown away by the intricacy and the complexity of those patterns. Like some of the lesser known ones, like it's Italian for tarantula. I don't know how to pronounce the name of that pattern. And then there's another one called the ballet quilt.
Yeah.
And I'm actually working on that one. It's been like a 5-year project. I probably won't ever finish it. But I just am so fascinated by, I think it's Willen Hammerstein.
Yeah.
I know I'm pronouncing her name wrong. And I'm sorry. She deserves my, know.
I avoid, I will talk around that as much as possible because I do not want to pronounce it. And I usually only go for the last name and I'm like, is it Hammerstein? There'll be someone listening to this just be going cringe. You people are butchering.
Yes.
And I often,
it's terrible.
I blame my Australian accent because it's so thick and harsh. It just makes everything.
Oh, I love it. I love your accent.
Yeah, you don't have to listen to it. It just makes everything sound really much worse than it is. And so, La Paz, that's all I say, La Paz.
I'm with you.
I can't go Pascalia. We have a joke in our family Bible study. If someone has to read from scripture and there's all names in it of places or people, and I'm shocking if I ever get the genealogy verses. I have this code where if I can't pronounce it, and they can fill it in their minds. He begat.
That's hilarious.
Who begat.
What is it? Numbers or Leviticus? That's all of those names. Yeah. You just clap the whole thing.
And it's I've had our pastor come up and be like, would you read? And I'm like, no.
No. Yeah.
It'll just be a lot of clapping and awkward silences. No, thank you.
That's great. I love it.
So, yes, she does amazing. If you ever get the opportunity, and there's sometimes at Quilt Festival, they'll do a retrospective or a collection. And I had the great privilege of seeing their La Paz collection when I was in Houston one year. And just to see how other people interpret the geometricness. I don't know whether that's a word. I don't think I'd play it in.
Yes, that's so fascinating. They'll combine shapes, or do things like that. I think that's so awesome.
But do you think, maybe this is just me, I find her quilt pattern designs are because I was a bit of a science buff at school, but my favorite thing was in biology when they'd put stuff on slides and drop the dye into it.
That's what it reminds me of also.
Yeah, and you
for sure.
You just kind of go, or the chaos theory, the spiral thing that they do.
Yes.
And so her work, I know her work has influenced a lot of people. She's got a new book coming out too, which
oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah, which apparently has some amazing stuff in it as well. So yeah. I would love to talk to her on the podcast, but I'm like, someone else, I'd have to write all the questions out and then someone else would have to interview her because I'd be like.
Right? Oh, I would geek out so hard. Yeah.
And then she'd be so frustrated by the end of it with my mispronunciation that it'd be over before it starts.
You'd be like, I just need you to say your name here.
Could you just say the name of the quilt here?
Oh, man. Yes.
So, she just does some amazing stuff. And so your work, divination, did I know?
I think you said it right. Yeah. We'll call it good.
Is a geometric based, it has a hint to that kind of detailed.
Yes.
But you do a lot of work in the example one that you've made. You've got the stripes, Tula Pink circus stripe fabric as stars. I don't know whether you would call them sashing block cornerstones.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't give them a technical name except for the smaller stars in the pattern. But yeah, I did the tent stripe for all of those. Yeah. Let me turn my thing a little bit better. I wasn't really set up very well here.
No, because now I'm just going to stare at your background for the next 20 minutes.
Well, hey, that's fine.
There's a footage going around on Instagram at the moment of a lady at a quilt show touching her own quilt. And she was like, this is my quilt. I made it. And then someone in the background's going, can't touch quilts without gloves. And she's like, I made this quilt. She's like, I don't care. It's the quilt show. Don't touch it without gloves, which is good because it means that they're looking after all the quilts.
Right.
But I would spend hours touching your quilt going, oh, that's where the join is. That's where the repeat is.
Oh, thanks.
Do you you're attracted to the humor in Tula's stuff. Do you put humor in your stuff?
I do occasionally when I'm naming things. You can't see the quilt that I'm looking at right now, but I have another EPP pattern called Trippy Triangles. And whenever I was going to name it, I was going to name it the Truffle Shuffle, like after the Goonies. But then I got into like this rabbit hole of, oh my God, what if they come after me for like copyright infringement or something because I used a phrase out of the movie? So I was like, no, I can't do that.
I think they used it out of something else though. So you would have been fine.
Oh man, maybe I'll go back and rename it. But anyways,
we'll just unofficially call it Truffle Shuffle from now on, and it'll take off.
Yes, exactly. And then I have like a really large churn dash pattern that I call Cheeky Churn Dash. So I kind of like little play on words or alliteration, or I wasn't an English major, but I get kind of a kick out of, cutesy little names like that, I guess. I don't know.
Because I'm looking at the star behind you and it's got the unicorn heads. And I once had this thing where I was like, I'm going to make one of those repeating designs where it's just the unicorn butt. Like,
but I almost did that and I was like, no, rein yourself in.
Because someone's going to be like, clutch my pearls, there's a bottom.
For sure, yes. Yes.
But you've used the...
Maybe I'll make another one and have it be all behinds.
I'm telling you, you've used the raccoons in the one behind your head. I'm assuming it's the raccoons, yeah?
Yes.
In the pink one?
Yes.
And is that their eyes?
It is, yeah. I'm obsessed with raccoons.
Me too. There's a gentleman on Instagram who films his daily feeding of the raccoons on his back porch, and like it's generational now. Like he started with, and now he's got like 27 of them or something, and they're like the family of this one, of this one, and this one. They look so cute, but I know that someone who lives with raccoons is going, they're a pain in the bum. They eat the trash. They make a mess. They're noisy. They destroy it. Because that's how people feel about our possums. Oh, they're so cute. Da-da-da-da. And again...
Oh, but y'all's possums are so cute compared to like the possums over here that are, I mean, they're still kind of cute, but they have like those nasty looking tails, but y'all's possums are precious.
Yeah, so we've got one that lives like just outside my studio on top of the shed.
Oh my gosh.
Who my mum calls Sterling Poss after Sterling Moss, the race car driver, because when we first moved in here, he used to like to climb up in our engine bay and go for a drive around town and then get out when we got back home.
Oh my gosh.
He's very lucky to be alive. So Sterling lives out there and I love him. And so I just go check. Don't tell my father, but I've been feeding him. And so the first time my dad caught me giving him some fruit, he's like, don't feed the possum. And I'm like, well, but he's so cute and he lives here. And he's like, he's a menace. He's going to bring vermin in here and disease and he destroys stuff and they make noise. And I'm like, but look at his little face.
They are so precious.
Yeah. So now
you don't have any wombats, do you?
No wombats. We got peacocks. We got a goanna, lots of snakes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's bananas.
Yeah. It's been a change. We got scrub turkeys. What else we got? Kookaburras. So I didn't know this before we moved here, but...
Oh, I don't know what that is. What's a kookaburra?
It's a bird. It's in the kingfisher family, but it has the call that sounds like a laugh. So you've probably heard it when you've watched something Australian because they kind of just dub it in over everything. But I didn't know this. They mate for life and then... the kids don't go far from the mum and dad. So we've got
how funny
8 here.
Oh, no.
And they'd all be from the same family. So,
oh, my gosh.
Which I find just really cute, but it blows my mind that they stick together. But they look really, it's really funny because they're a bird, so feathers, but they look really fluffy. I don't know. But I've become obsessed with them since we've moved here because they're like everywhere. Plus, they eat snakes, so they're like my best friend.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, although someone's listening going, snakes are part of the ecosystem and they keep the pests down, and which is fine. I don't care about that bit. But when you come home and there's a snake up your front door or you open the door and there's a snake up the security screen, that's a little bit too close for my liking.
Y'all have terrible snakes over there too. Terrifying.
Yep. I mean, they're beautiful. Like we had one turn up on Christmas Day and it was coming up the side back door and the colours, it was black and yellow. Like it had a yellow, greeny yellow underbelly and then a black.
Oh my goodness.
It's a tree snake, so non-venomous. But and then when we got closer to him, because we're so brave. We're all behind the thing going, oh, look at how pretty he is. He had like a diamond. The scales were just amazing. And the nerdy quilter in me was going, that would make an amazing quilt pattern, like just a repeat of that.
Oh, for sure.
So they are really beautiful, but I can do most things. Like we have massive spiders. I can handle that. I can handle the frogs.
I cannot.
The geckos, the goanna. I can do all of that. But when it comes to the snakes, I'm like, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And the peacocks, when we first got here and there was peacocks, because they just roam, right? They're not ours. They're free range. And I was like,
how awesome.
They're stunning. They're amazing. Look at how pretty they are. And they are. The closer you get to them, they've got like weird little feathers at the top. And I'm like, this is beautiful. And we're just so lucky. And then one made a noise and it's like someone strangling a goose cat.
Oh, they're awful. My neighbor had one, or our neighbor, whenever I was growing up, and it is the most awful sound. You would never imagine a peacock is making that sound.
No, it was like the Lord went, I've blessed you with beauty, but I'm cursing you with the weirdest sound on the planet. So,
yes.
And then I'd never thought about this either, but their ablutions are massive and they strip the paint off our deck. And so when they sit along our handrail and go to the bathroom on the thing, it's stripping the paint. And so now I've got this thing of, and again, my father to the rescue is like, you got to chase them. You got to chase them. You got to make So I'm like,
oh my gosh.
They're so pretty. And now they've got babies. So they keep having, and they're really cute as little peacocks.
I bet they are really cute.
But yeah, it's just, so moving here has been funny, but again, I can see it influencing my work because the way I see colour and the, I don't know whether you heard that, but a peacock just said hello.
Oh, I didn't.
But yeah, so it's all that sort of stuff. And again, I think it's why I like Tula, because she has that nature element and she seems to see the funny side in, like she's got a raccoon print in Tiny Beasts and it's so cute and they're in the trash and, you know, it's all of that humour, unusualness. Now the peacocks are talking to each other.
That's hilarious. I can't hear it.
I'm telling you, the worst thing is when it's mating season because they go at like 4 a.m. in the morning singing out to each other and you're like, dude, put it away. But yeah, so it's been an interesting thing. So is there a fabric that you don't have that you would give your arm to have?
Oh, let me think for a minute. I will tell you, so I'm on one of those Facebook groups where they put up Tula for sale all the time, you know, the black market Tula group. Yep. And anytime I see plume, the feather print, I almost always buy it.
Yeah.
I can't help myself. And I have never cut it up. I can't bring myself. Someday I will. But those feathers, I'm not even a bird person. Like, I don't think birds are great. They're great, whatever, but they're not my favorite. But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I missed plume entirely. I didn't know about Tula back then. But I feel that way about some of the lines that I totally missed.
I think plume was with Moda too. When she was with Moda.
Yes. So it's really hard to come across. Yeah. But I've got quite a little stash of those feathers in different colorways. And I don't know what it is about them. I would love to the pink and the green
feathers, my kryptonite. If I see them, I'm like, take my credit card. I need all of that.
It's terrible. And my daughter came in here one time and, you know, I let her just rifle through my shelves and she touched that. And I was like, oh, nope, back up. Back away from the fabric, drop it.
Mommy says no.
Go wash your hands. Back up. It's terrible, but I'd probably say that's probably the one that I think of the most. There's also some Anna Maria Horner prints that I don't know what the name of them are. And also Joel Dewberry. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I'm not sure that he even puts out collections anymore, but there was one collection.
It's like a historic tile.
Yes, that's it.
In a pink, like a pinky.
Yes, there's a pink, an orange, a green, And I cannot remember the name of
Me
that
neither,
fabric line. It's going to kill me.
I bought 6 yards of the pink tile one.
What is it about those collections? It's fabulous. And I have a quilt. I cut that all up. I think that was the first fussy cutting I ever did. I cut them all so that it's just like a big border quilt or a medallion, whatever you want to call it. And I used the big focal medallion print in the middle, and then I did each other print around it.
Yeah.
But I fussy cut them before I knew what fussy cutting was, really. And I sleep with that every night. It's my favorite.
Christy from Quiet Play. I remember one day early on in our friendship, we were Zooming because we didn't live in the same town, and she had it set up in her bedroom, and her quilt was on the back on her bed, and I was just like, "Shut up, move aside. Is that Joel Dewberry?" And she's like, "Yes." I'm like, "I loved that collection," but yeah, I don't think he does fabric anymore.
He's so good. It's so sad, tragic.
I know, and I cannot, like, if you said to me, "Do you like the color pink?" I'd be like. But I've come to realize
I don't either.
I actually must really on some level, and I think it's because my first bedroom was painted 2 tones of pink, but I'm like, I love it. I love, and like our logo has pink in it, all that sort of stuff, but I cannot, I will not buy pink for our house. I don't buy homewares in pink. I don't wear pink.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope. But when it comes to fabric, if there's a pink in a pattern I like, I got to have it. And so... Yeah. His historic tile, I don't know what that collection was called.
Oh, I know. It's going to ruin my brain. I can't believe I can't think of it right now.
But I bought it off fabric.com, and they were like, "Congratulations, you got the last of the bolt." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Oh, those stickers are the best.
I know.
Core memory unlocked.
Congratulations, you got the end of the bolt.
Yes.
Yes. I cannot wait. I'm going to my search history knows me so well. Wander. The collection was called Wander.
Is that what it was?
Yep. And I've made the fatal error of clicking on an Etsy or an eBay for it.
Oh, no. You'll see it for the next year.
Yeah, Wander. So, that's right. I will put this in the show notes for people to have a look at it. Oh, you know what's really interesting is one of the prints looks like your secondary star pattern, like how you do.
Oh, how funny.
Oh, and he's got florals. I'd forgotten he did florals.
Oh, I'll have to go take a look at that. Or maybe not. It'll make me so sad.
I know, right? There are fabric designers where I'm just like, come back.
Yes. You know, there's another one. I can't think of his name right now, but he did Project Runway, and then he did a fabric line with Free Spirit, just a one-off. But I have a couple of those prints, and it was when I didn't know anything about anything or who he was or how important it was, that fabric line. Gosh, I wish I could think of it. But they kind of looked like cellular, you know, like things you'd see under a microscope. Some of the prints that he did.
Yeah.
And they were just really, really cool.
Well, see, it's really interesting because I can't sew garments to save myself, but I was addicted to Project Runway. And so many times I was like, gee, that'd translate really well into a fabric pattern or a quilt but yeah. Is it Jay McCarroll?
Yes, that's who it was. Yes.
You're welcome.
And, you know, the colors weren't necessarily something I really gravitated towards, but I just love the patterns. I think I used it as a quilt back.
He did like a pixelated vintage rose pattern.
Yep.
And then he's got like browns, baby blue, baby pink.
Yes.
Dots on a floral. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he only ever did one.
Yep, it was just a one-off.
Oh, I remember him. He was lovely.
Yes. Lots of fun.
Oh, Google, you're so good to me.
Yes.
Except Siri will be listening, and now for the next, 6 months, I'll be getting all different weird stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'd forgotten too, Joel Dewberry did Atrium, and it's got a really...
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one. I don't think I have any of that line.
Oh, I bought the poppies. He did the poppies in that one, and I bought like heaps. And again, in the pink colorway. he used to do yellow really well. Do you find yellow's a hard color to find?
The hardest.
Yeah.
I don't do yellow well at all.
And Tula doesn't have a real yellow. She has that mustard. She doesn't have like a real.
It's not like a true, like a school bus yellow.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? But I will say I'm making another version of Divination right now, and I'm using all Anna Maria Horner fabrics. Yeah. And she has lots of yellow.
Yes.
And I just finished fussy cutting. I can't tell you what the print is, but the outer star, you know, like this portion here, I used just a very punchy yellow. And I finished sewing it last night, and I showed my husband, and I was like, what do you think of this? And he's like, it doesn't look like you at all.
Oh.
And I said, I know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it in the quilt because it really looks forced. You know, when you try to do something that's out of your normal, and then you step back and you're like, this just does not look like me. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think sometimes they're the best bits in your journey because they're the bits that help refine and clarify what is you. And so sometimes you have to wander off the path a bit to kind of go, yeah, you know what? That's not, I'm going back to, and I find the bit in my work, the thing that I make after that, I really love. And I don't know whether it's that thing of,
that's such a good point.
Oh, I went too far off the reservation on that one. And now I need to come back to the comfort of, but my stuff, or the way that I look at colour and pattern changes after those little jaunts. And that's what I try to encourage people, just to play and have fun, because the mistakes are worth more than the stuff you get right. If every time you sat down you just, you know, nailed it, how boring would that be? It's the excitement of going, will this work? Won't it work? Does it come out? And that sort of thing, that's the thing that keeps me coming back. But I think that's probably reflective of why we're designers, not necessarily just punching out.
That's so true.
Stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of times I'll sit and I'll fussy cut something and totally sew it together like it's ready to go into the quilt, and I'll scrap the whole thing. And then I'll come back and cut something else, and I'll pick it all apart and replace a portion of it. And it's so much better. And I recently shared one of the things that I did like that on Instagram, and people were, you know, saying how often they do that all the time. And they're like, people that make patterns like this, they don't ever share the stuff that they ditch.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really funny that maybe people don't share. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I don't really show a lot of that I get rid of, but.
Oh, I'm shocking at taking photos. Like I get so lost and excited in the making that I'm like, done.
Right.
And my mum will go, did you take any photos of that genius while you were working? And I'll be like, nope. You want me to do stuff for content? Sorry. But
that's so funny.
It's the thing of taking what you love and making it a business, is that you have to walk the line between refilling your emotional and creative cup and doing stuff for the business. And so,
right.
And sometimes it's that thing of you have to either set systems up in place. Like sometimes I'll set an alarm to remind myself to take a photo. Like, take a photo at this point. Whatever you're doing now, take a photo. Or you get someone like my little offsider who says, did you take a photo? You know, did you get that stuff? Because I just stopped thinking about the world, which is another good thing about the craft, is that it allows you to stop thinking about what's going on. So I'm going to take a little, I was going to say deviation, and ask you, as a quilter, when you're piecing, are you thinking about the quilting?
Always.
Because
I'm always thinking about the quilting.
I'm not a quilter. Like quilting and snakes, two things I avoid like the plague. Because to me, the quilting is in and of itself a specialized skill set. And so I had limited time when I first started working. I couldn't do everything. And so I opted to go with what I loved, which was the piecing. And I've had a play on Rayleigh's long arm, and I love it. I love me. She hates it because I never do the speed consistently. And she's like, no,
Oh,
no.
right. Uh-huh.
But I'm always fascinated to know, because when I make pieces, I'm thinking about the quilting at the same time, but it's because I've got someone who's a long armer who I can go, yo, I think we should quilt like this. What do you think?
Right.
But as the person who quilts it and makes it, is your mind always like, how does that marriage work for you? Are you going, all right, well, if I fussy cut the centers, then the outer star, I've got place to do line work in, or like?
Yeah. So usually whenever I'm thinking about the quilting, I have a lot more fun thinking about quilting solids than I do quilting something like divination or my spellbound quilt pattern, just because they're so busy. There's so much to look at that I'm probably going to end up doing ruler work and not a lot of free motion, crazy, whatever, because I don't want the quilting to be the focus. I want the
Fabric.
kaleidoscope effect or whatever it is, that I want to be the focal point. I want it to be something else that someone can look at and say, oh, she was thinking about the quilting, but as a secondary, somewhere for my eye to rest, not for me to just like be so overwhelmed by, oh, there's fussy cutting and there's what's going on. There's free motion. There's too much. You know what I'm saying? And so some of my other EPP patterns that I've designed, I designed them to be made with solids, like my trippy triangles. And I really have a lot of fun doing the ruler work quilting on those. Sometimes I'll just do a pantograph. Like I have another pattern called Scrappy Plus EPP, and it's a panel that I made to be designed to go with a bag pattern that I have. And so I really go crazy with the quilting, like super dense pantographs on those with the solids, because then it really stands out. Like it's not too much because it's solid fabrics with the quilting. I hope I'm making sense. This sounds kind of stupid the way that I'm saying it.
No, because that's exactly how we think. And Rayleigh often laughs that she knows if I hand over like a quilt that I'm really in love with, it's going to mean ruler work for her. And she's like, I just always with your custom stuff, it's always ruler work. It's not. And we talk in terms of texture. What kind of texture do we want? And it sucks for her because I love a good dense quilt. And so I'm like, that quilt better
me too.
Stand up by itself when it comes off that frame.
Yes, amen.
And she's like, oh. But that's the way I like it. And when I put solids in, it's usually because I'm like, here you go, sister. You can have some fun in the solids. Or a tone on tone. Here you go, you can muck around in this. And so the quilting to me is about offering that texture, the textural element to the fussy cut, and what can we – because when quilting, and this sounds really nerdy, but the quilting's all about the shadow. So what shadow is it going to leave in the quilt when it's done? And it's
for sure.
If it's in a quilt show, like, and I'm not going to lie, we do quilts where we're like, this is a quilt show quilt, so obviously you're going in there to try and knock it out of the park. But
right,
we're like, when it's on the wall and they're standing there looking at it, how's the light going to play across it? And I don't think we kind of go, it's not that high level artsy fartsy stuff where we kind of go, this, we want this, da-da-da-da. But it's all that stuff that's subconsciously going on, that years of doing it together, we know, all right, if we go with this sort of dense pattern, the fabric's going to look like this. One of the quilts we did, we were ahead of our time. It was I had just a row of blocks going from one corner to the other corner, diagonally across. And the block, it was all solids, and the blocks kind of dissipated, the colour dissipated out. So we quilted on the background fabric in the same colours as the blocks and repeated the block design, but made it go from like the outline of the design all the way into the middle. It was like all the colour in the thread was being sucked into the middle. And we were just so impressed with ourselves. We were like, this is just so art. We've, this is conceptual. And I remember we were in the room when it was being judged, and the judge just going, there's no uniformity in this quilting. We were like,
oh, how heartbreaking.
we were like, that's the point. That's the point. And she was like, no, this is, take it away from me. Get it away from me.
Oh.
And now I look at it and I go, people do that all the time. We were so ahead of the curve. But that was how we think about it. We were like, the thread needs to be sucked into these blocks. And
yes, that sounds amazing.
we ended up calling that quilt the Madonna quilt because the pattern, you remember the
yes,
the pointy breasts she used to have? That was the secondary pattern that was created as she moved. The official name of that quilt was Lucy in the Sky with, oh, no. Was that Lucy? Or she went to Paris? Anyway, but the unofficial is we call it the Madonna quilt because it's got boobs, like just all over it.
Funny.
But yeah, so I completely understand. I completely get it. I think you are very lucky or fortunate or skilled, talented to have the gift of being able to quilt your own quilts and understand how that works, because there's a gap for me between understanding what the machine will do and what I want the end result to be. And in some ways that's good because I don't have any preconceived limitations around, oh, the machine won't do that or da-da-da-da-da. But for Rayleigh, it sucks because I'm the dork coming to her going, hey,
right.
Could you make it like this? But yeah, do you find when you work on other people's quilts, because I'm looking at Deborah's Irish chain on your Instagram feed, and it is a scrappy Irish chain, triple chain, I think they call it.
Yes.
Do you find yourself looking at other people's quilts when they get handed in and going, oh, I like that fabric. Oh, I like that. Oh, I like where?
Yes. And Deborah, I quilt so many quilts for her. She's one of my most prolific quilters, probably. She is just so addicted to fussy cutting, but she's a scrappy quilter. So she'll bring me just these magnificent, and I suck at scrappy quilts. I can't do it. I don't have the ability to take random fabrics and make them look good together in a quilt, but she just knocks it out of the park every time. Yeah. And she fussy cuts these little gems into everything. And so I'll be quilting something and I'll be like, oh, Deborah, you gave me a raccoon, or whatever it is. There's so many things that she puts in her quilts, and they are just a joy to quilt. But yes, I love seeing stuff like that. And it's so inspiring to be able to see so many other quilts.
Yes. Yeah.
And I will say it's a little bit of a curse that I quilt my own quilts because they are always on the back burner and never a top priority.
Yeah.
So like my Spellbound's EPP quilts, that was the last big one that I released before Divination. And it's probably my top selling pattern that I've ever written. I still haven't quilted it. And I finished it the week before my son was born, and he is almost 2.5. So it's still sitting in my personal quilt pile.
You've got heaps of time.
Languishing.
Heaps of time.
I don't know. It is what it is.
This is why I could never be a long armer, because I would spend more time just poring over someone else's quilt than actually quilting it.
It is a lot of fun.
And it's one of the reasons I like going to quilt shows is because you get to see, and Instagram's like a mini quilt show, but you just get to see how people see the world, how they mix color, what they get joy out of, how they use fabric. One of my favorite things about 100 Days, 100 Blocks is seeing how other people use the fabric, and everyone's using the same block. And so
oh my gosh,
you get to see, oh, they saw that in that block pattern. They saw, and it's just, you never stop learning, I think. Do you have a go-to fabric? Like you seem to use a lot of stripes. Is that?
I love stripes. I like black and white fabrics a lot, and I like to pair them with color, which is not something novel, or new that I created or anything by any means.
I'll give it to you.
But I think that I find it was easier to make a cohesive quilt. Like my Spellbound quilt pattern, I based it off of Tula Pink's line work fabric line that was all black and whites. And then I just did like a rainbow gradation or whatever you want to call it. But I like that punchy, the graphicness that the black and white gives a colorful quilt. Yeah. I don't want just like you can see my Divination quilt, there's lots of black in it. I don't like white backgrounds really. just because I feel like they get kind of dingy after a while, or kind of a yellowish. I don't know. They don't age well, especially if you have little kids that are putting their grubby hands on everything.
Or you like chocolate, but yeah.
Yes. I think black and white fabrics and stripes probably are my go-tos. What about you?
I'm the same. I cannot walk past a black and white fabric. And my favorite is like black and white and a third color. So black, white, pink, black, white and yellow is like one of my all time.
It's like very dramatic or something.
Yeah, and I don't know. So to me, and this someone who understands art way more than I do will be going, that's because of da 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 da. But you can get a value scale in black and white fabric that plays with other colors so nicely and creates so much interest and dynamicness. I don't know. There's another word for it. But there is just something about it that makes me so happy when I see it. Yes. And I've tried I can't do all solid quilts because I get bored. I don't have the attention span for it, which as a pattern designer, very tricky because most people just want a solids version of the pattern that they can see and then imagine themselves on top of, kind of thing, like not physically, like, hey, look at me on a quilt, but like imagine their fabric choices over the top of it. And so it's really hard for me to kind of step back. But the quilts in my collection that I go, they're the ones that I really love, have two things: humor and then a really strong contrast in the prints in it. And so, and I'm really going through a thing at the moment where I like, and I'm looking at a quilt on my wall. I like a lot of print all together for some reason, and at the moment, and I'm like, there's something just really luxurious about having so much print in one. It's like you just get to go, look at all the colors I can play with.
Yeah.
But in a controlled palette. Like my 100 Days blocks at the moment are pink, red, black and white. That's with a pop of teal or aqua in it.
Oh, nice. So, I love seeing your 100 blocks Instagram posts. I don't feel like I could ever make that quilt. It's so complex. You know what I'm saying?
No, because I look at your quilts and I go, oh, yeah, couldn't do that. I couldn't.
Oh, you could. It's so easy.
But that's
easy,
my thing.
really.
I'm like, they're just 100 blocks of geometric things together. But I think it's that, like you, I don't tend to follow there's two things I look for when I follow an account for my edification is someone who sees color differently to me, because I think I'm always wanting to learn it and see unusual things together. And then someone who it's so obvious that they're having so much joy in what they do that it leaks out of everything. And I think that's one of the things with your work where I go, it's so obvious that you've had fun. And it's interesting to hear you go, that block seemed really forced. Were you having fun when you were making that yellow block, or was it, I need to step out, I need to do something different?
You know, I was having fun with it because the center was mostly brown, and I hate brown, but I was like, okay, Anna Maria Horner made this fabric, so it's spectacular, because she did it. And I am going to cut this up, and I'm going to also be spectacular. And then when I sewed it together, I was like, this is not spectacular. This is
Have you posted it on social media at all?
I have not. No, I haven't.
I wouldn't.
I don't know if I will.
Well, I would post it and see just don't say anything about it. Just go post it and see what the response is. Because
okay, I will. And the comments will be yellow.
No, because some people in your audience will go, wow, I really love this direction that you've gone with this. Some people will go, ugh, that's not you. It'll be interesting to see what the engagement is, whether you get the same, like from a data analyst point of view, whether you get the same engagement with it or whether it brings new people. It's just because you do use yellow. So it's not like the yellow should be that bigger. a step out.
This is a very, very yellow. I don't even know. Oh, hold on. I have it right here. I mean, nobody else can see it, but this is it.
No, see, I love that.
It's a...
Oh,
do you? Really?
Yeah. And you know what's really funny? This is going to make you laugh. We've got a quilt kit coming up with Free Spirit, and I picked that yellow as my...
Did you?
As my
it's a great yellow.
As my punch of colour.
I don't know.
It doesn't...
I don't know.
But you're playing with someone else's palette, right? So...
Yes. I'm trying to not be my usual... I don't know what the word is for that, but it's very different from anything I usually...
Yeah, it is very different, and it's still flavored like you, if you know what I mean. But it is obvious that you're using a palette. I mean, it's not Tula. Tula does like different, and it's one of the reasons I love Anna Maria's fabric is that it is so unusual, and she does a really good brown. Brown is...
You know what it is? It's moody.
Yes.
That's what I love about it. It's like a romantic, moody, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just great. It has a lot of depth to it.
One of my...
Not humor, but you know what I'm saying.
Because she's observant, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and you can see it when she shares sketches that she's done when she's been traveling and stuff like that.
Yes.
She is looking at the world always through her Anna Maria specific lens, but she sees detail and color, and it's botanical without screaming, in the same way that Amy Butler was very botanical, and you would go, that's very floral. That's a floral. Mm-hmm. Anna Maria's is botanical, but it doesn't feel chintzy, I think is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's not too in your face.
Yeah. But one of her, she did a print a number of years ago, and I want to say Enchanted, but I don't think that's it. But it was like a tree with a pond and a hill, and the colours in that, it has to be one of my all-time favourite prints.
It's Fibs and Fables is what it is, because those are the curtains in my son's room.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the colours in it remind me of a Albert Namatjira painting, who's an Aboriginal artist from Australia from, I want to say the 50s, 60s, 70s. But he used to paint the outback where I grew up in watercolours, and he was taught by Europeans to paint. And so he has that old master's kind of feel to it, but he's painting the Australian colours. And so our outback has very reddy, ochre-y, browny tones in the soil, and so they come through. But yeah, he's one of my all-time favourites, and I live in hope that one day I will find one of his originals on eBay or something, and someone doesn't know it's...
Oh, nice.
I'm like,
yeah, right?
But yeah, it's that line, and she's got another line coming out. I think it's the next one, and it's got horses in amongst trees.
Yes, I saw that.
And it has a similar...
I'm ordering bolts.
It has a similar colouring to the Fibs and Fables.
It does, absolutely.
Landscape print. But yeah, I said to someone the other day, and because it's only just dawned on me, because I'm slow, I look at fabric the way people go to art galleries and look at art on the wall. That's my thing.
Yeah. Yes.
And I could spend hours just walking through a quilt show going, oh, look at the fabric they use there. Why do you think or listening to, like, my favorite thing about going to a guild meeting used to be show and tell, where they'd stand up and go, I made this quilt and it's for my nephew, and I picked this because he loves Transformers, and and I thought this color would complement it. And I'm like, yeah, that's like, all of that sort of stuff. So it's been a real pleasure to talk to you about fabric and your work, and to get a little bit of an insight into it. I could swim in your Instagram feed like Scrooge McDuck in his vault of money, because it is just so delicious. I will put links to everything in the show notes, and thank you for spending time with us today, Joanna.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Fussy Cutters podcast. Enjoyed listening? Why not subscribe so you'll never miss an episode? Did you know the quickest way to the heart of any podcaster is to leave a review or recommend the podcast to a friend? It's true, it is. Until next week, get out there and fondle that fabric.